when you start.
Yep, right, go. Welcome to this meeting of the Pyrenees Shire Council. Councillors will today deliberate and decide on a range of matters relevant to the work of council in its communities for the welfare of the people of the Pyrenees Shire. As the meeting chair, I give my consent for this ordinary council meeting to be streamed live, recorded and published online. Anyone who is invited to read out a question or make a submission will be recorded, and their voice, image and contents will form part of that live stream and recording. The chair and or the CEO have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances where deemed appropriate. That may include where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory or potentially inappropriate to be published. The live stream will stop prior to the closed section of the meeting and will recommence for the conclusion of the meeting. The public is able to review this live stream via our website at www.pyrenees.vic.gov.au. Should technical issues prevent the continuation of the live stream, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum can be maintained. Where possible, a recording of the meeting will be published on Council's website. Where a quorum cannot be maintained, the meeting will be adjourned until the issue is resolved or the meeting postponed to another time and date in accordance with Council's governance rules. We acknowledge the people past and present of the Wadawurrung, Jar Jar Wurrung, Eastern Ma, Watchabollock, Jardwa, Jardwa Jali, Wirragai and Jabbergulk nations, whose lands and waters the Pyrenees Shire operates on. We pay our respects to their ancestors and elders and recognise and respect their customs, stewardship and continuing connection to country. Any apologies? No apologies, all present. Has any councillor or council officer got any notice of disclosure or interest? None at this stage, thank you. Item 6, confirmation of previous minutes. The ordinary meeting held on 8th of December 2025 and a closed meeting held on the 8th of December 2025 as circulated to be cancelled. Can I have someone recommend that they be accepted, please? Thank you, Councillor. Seconded, Councillor Toll. No business arising or taken on notice from the previous meeting. Public participation. Members of the community are encouraged to participate in public ordinary council meetings by asking questions or presenting a submission. This can be done by attending in person or by submitting in writing prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting, online through Council's website or by mail or hand delivered. If a question or submission is submitted in writing, this will be read by the chair during the public participation, stating the person's name and township. Question time will be held first, followed by public submissions. 30 minutes is allowed for the total period of public participation. Time extensions may be allowed at the discretion of the chair, subject to the provisions of the governance rules. A person may ask a maximum of 2 questions at any one meeting. The chair will allocate a maximum of 5 minutes to each person who wishes to address council or ask questions. The chair, councillor or council officer to whom a question is referred may immediately answer the question or take the question on notice for answering at a later date. There will be no discussion or debate with public attendees. However, councillors may ask questions of the attendee for clarification. And for the viewers and the public's benefit, there is no questions being tendered by the public for this meeting. That takes us to item 9, councillor activity reports. Councillors, I'll take those items as read. Would someone like to note those reports?
I'll just wait for a second.
Sorry.
Need to make a note. Did you want a second?
No, yeah, I was going to say
Seconded, Councillor Woodall. Just on mine, I just had to add, I had another community meeting on that 10th of the 1st. So the first one was at Streatham and the second one was at Skipton. And I was also had a community barbecue at Stoneleigh on the 11th, the next day, the 11th of the 1st. So which is a Sunday. I think, thanks, sorry, Shan, I should have got to that earlier, but thank you, that's all from me.
Can I also, sorry, just add one, and sorry, Shan, that I didn't get to this, just that I did also attend the online councillor update about the fires on the 22nd, but missed the first. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other further updates? And have someone moved that that's now
Moved and seconded.
moved and seconded? Thank you.
We'll vote on that.
All those in favour? Thank you. Brings us to item 10, Assembly of Councillors. I'll take that as read. The offers a recommendation that council notes this report. Can I have someone move that, please? Move Councillor Phelan, seconded Councillor Wardlaw. Thank you. This takes us to item 11, items for decision. 11.1, Economic Development and Tourism. Is that you, Mr. Moore?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of this report is to bring to you a possible grant application and to seek direction from council around this application. It relates to the Beaufort Linear Master Plan implementation, and councillors will recall that this master plan was prepared within the last couple of years, and there was strong community support for the master plan. The application that's in front of you essentially is about the implementation of that master plan, or the first stage of the implementation, and it relates to the section of the linear master plan essentially on the northern end of the project, and particularly in the intent of the project is to create a nature-based recreation corridor along the Garibaldi Creek and the Beaufort Lake Spillway to the point where the creek joins the Yamholes Creek north of the railway line, and it includes a proposed walking and cycling path which will provide linkages between the Leighton and Beck Street playground area. And as I said, the master plan was endorsed by council in November 2024 and accompanied by a hydraulic analysis. Council resolved to actively seek funding opportunities to deliver the master plan, and that's essentially what this report does. So there is an opportunity through the Integrated Water Management Planning Framework to be able to put forward an application. This application includes, it's outlined within the report, and includes the area at Beck Street. It's a total cost, or the costs associated with the project are outlined in the report. Seeking a grant of $345,600. It requires a cash contribution from council of $50,000 and an in-kind contribution of $70,000. And that is a critical consideration for council. Obviously, implementation of a master plan that's endorsed by council and had a lot of community support is a primary consideration, but a secondary consideration is whether in fact council's co-contribution of $50,000 in cash and $70,000 in kind is able to be sustained in the context of our current financial constraints. So council, there are some options for council if council is of the view that the financial contribution is unattainable. At this point in time, we're looking at over the next 2 financial years if council was to fund this amount. And one of the options available to council, one, is to be able to endorse the application and the contribution as outlined in the recommendation of this report. The second possibility is for council to submit the application in anticipation that the co-contribution can be found from other sources. And if we're unable to find the other sources and the application is successful, then council would then be in a position of having to not take up the opportunity. The second is to submit the application without a financial contribution, that's likely to be unsuccessful, or to not submit an application. So there are a couple of options available to council. Obviously, council's financial sustainability in the context of a whole range of funding pressures, financial pressures on council is a major consideration. Nevertheless, there is an opportunity to substantially enhance the area that is in question. And councillors, there is a recommendation there that the application be endorsed and that council commits to the cash contribution and in-kind contribution, and notes that the above contributions outlined in 2 and 3 will be required during the 26, 27 and 27, 28 financial years.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Councillors, there's a recommendation there. Is anyone like to move that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Kim. Look, whilst I fully support the plan to do this, I think with our current financial position, our current financial,
You need to move an old.
I'd like to move an alternate recommendation or motion that in our current situation that we try and source other funding, and if we can't source other funding from an external source, that we don't proceed with the application.
Someone like to second that? We got a second? Seconded? Yep. Would you like to speak any further on that, Councillor Toll?
As I mentioned, I think it's a great project, but we've got to be able to afford what we can set out to do. So I don't want to put any strains on the resources of the council or the organisation to deliver one project. I'd much rather see that we can get everything done as we've committed so far without cutting too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, you
Councillor
said what I
Ward,
would have said.
any other councillors wish to speak on that?
May I ask a question on that one? Would that impact the co-contributions and that we currently have secured for that? Sorry, we're asking you, Mr. Nolan, or Doug? Mr. Gibbons.
Sorry, Councillor Kerr, I don't quite understand the question. Would the council decision impact on the co-contribution?
Yeah.
So as I understand the motion is that council seek to secure other funding for the co-contribution, and if we're not able to seek that co-contribution funds, that we don't submit this application. So part of it is for the $50,000 amount.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with that. Sorry, if there's a time limit or anything, would there be a time limit tied to that?
It is time limited, but
Yes.
I'm not able to tell you what the actual date is. at
I'll
this point
take
in
that on
time.
notice.
Thank you.
But no, very happy with that. Sorry, just wanted to clarify.
Councillor-
Yeah.
I also have a follow-up question. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. And I think it's maybe similar to what Councillor Keogh has just asked. So if we were to say that our financial position doesn't allow us to currently contribute 50,000 in cash to this project, but we do seek to source those funds elsewhere, does the fact or would the fact that council isn't contributing financially or in cash, is that likely to impact the success or otherwise of the application? So that is, if we find the 50,000 elsewhere, so we've still got the total amount covered, but if that contribution isn't coming from council, will it impact the application?
Ordinarily, if alternative sources of funding are able to be identified and secured, it would have the same effect as if it came from council. So other parties' contributions that can be leveraged to secure the grant. Ordinarily, that is the case. I'm not certain that that's necessarily going to be the case here, but ordinarily, if you can identify alternatives, identify the co-contributions from whatever range of sources, if they're secured, they should have the same effect as if they came from council. If they're not secured or only anticipated, if they're not locked down, then that's likely to be considered less favourably. So in this instance, given the time constraints around this, it's most likely that the best opportunity for us is to get some, I guess, support in principle rather than necessarily confirmed funding. In which case it's most likely not going to be as well received as if it was secured.
Yeah.
Any further questions, councillors?
I am just worried that that's going to put this in jeopardy. So recognising again, we do have the reality of a financial position that is very constrained, but we've also made significant investment up to this point in the master planning, and we don't want to throw away that investment either. So, I mean, can you just remind us again of the timeframes? Like, is there an opportunity to bring back to the next meeting some sense of what the in principle support, financial support from another organisation or entity might be?
Yes, I think the what was contained within the report was that we submit the application and advocacy for funding support for the co-contribution from other sources. If the co-contribution cannot be found from other sources, council will not take up the future funding offer under the program if the application is successful. So I suppose what I was sort of outlining there is that an application could be submitted on the basis that the co-contribution would be anticipated from other sources, in which case the application could be considered, and then if it's successful and we're able to have secured by that time the other source of funding, then we take the funding option up. If we're not able to secure them by that time, then we don't take the funding option up, was the direction I was in. In that way, that gives us more time to be able to secure those funding options. Under the current motion suggests that we do not proceed with the application if we can't secure those funds. So what we will endeavour to do is to seek some commitments from other sources towards contributions and submit that with our application, and then before being determined, we can continue to work on bedding those down. But that's the approach that I will have. It's a limited period of time, and I most likely will need to look to try and secure that. And I don't have any particular sources where I might be able to get that there in a short period of time, but we will be able to take that up with the funding body. I'm not sure if that's sufficient to answer your question, but there's a lot of uncertainties about it. But I think it's reasonable for us to anticipate that there may be other sources of funding that might contribute to it, but it's not likely that we're going to be able to secure those matching contributions ahead of submitting an application.
Can I seek also, apologies, just a clarification from Councillor Toll in that alternate motion. Councillor Toll, would you be satisfied with a contribution from another source, or do you want the full 50,000? Are you seeking to have that full 50,000 met from?
Councillor Phil, I'd like to get some money coming in from another source, just to ease the burden on the Shire.
That might make it an easier ask potentially.
Just Mr. Gowans.
Sorry, councillor, just a clarification on the timing of this grant program. It's been extended for regional areas because of the fire impacts in regional areas. It's actually already closed metropolitanly. It closed on the 16th of February, but the extension for regional areas was to the 18th of March, which is effectively before the next council meeting, just to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you.
So do we need an amendment to that thing? Are we happy with that?
Well, Mr. Mayor, a part of it is about interpreting what the words of the motion state, that that in the current situation, we try to secure other funding, and if we can't source other funding, we don't proceed with the application. So if we're able to secure some funding towards this, that we look to still submit. If we can't secure the full 50,000, we might be still in a position to be able to submit if we secure some
Can we delete that, what we just said, and roll it over with that extension to the next council meeting to
No,
raise?
you
Oh,
can't.
actually, I think the next council meeting is on the 16th of March, so there is
Oh, no,
2
so
days.
yes.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Where
the
it's
problem
very
is pushing
short.
it too far.
Yeah.
Either we prepare the application or we don't prepare it. There's a lot of material to be sort of submitted. So I'm happy to take on that motion of councillor to resolve that way and to work with that to look to secure some of the $50,000 contribution.
Happy with that, councillor Tom? Any further questions?
No, I'm more comfortable with that too. Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for that clarification, Mr. Gowns. I think this highlights something to the community that we find ourselves in the current financial sustainability situation, having to make alternative decisions regarding funding and projects to maintain our sustainability than we otherwise would have had to make. And, you know, hence the discussion and the decision making around this project. And 50,000 might seem like much, but when you add a few of them up, it does become so. We're so conscious of our financial sustainability and our financial situation. We really scrutinise extra careful any of those decisions where it comes to committing council funds to things. So a really good discussion, councillors, and a good alternative. So all those in favour? Thank you. That brings us to 11.2.1, naming proposal to name 3 new roads as part of the Burke Street development. Ms Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to select 3 names from the 5 listed options to allocate to 3 new roads created in the Burke Street development in both. Burke Street development is a council initiative resulting in the creation of 34 parcels of land following a 2-stage construction and subdivision project. Of the 34 parcels, 10 new homes are being built jointly funded by the Pyrenees Shire Council and the government through the Regional Worker Accommodation Fund. The development has created 3 new roads which require naming. Stage 2 of the Burke Street development has been lodged with Sphere and requires road names in order to allocate street addressing and finalise the certification process. Following the recent local Baydene fires, which had significant impact on the local community, attention has been drawn to local Pyrenees flora and fauna for naming the roads in the Burke Street development. So the 5 options are the Grevelier Drive, which is a critically endangered shrub that grows to 1 metre and is only found around Mount Cole in Western Victoria. Phasocracal Court, and I'll pronounce that wrong, so apologies. Brush-tailed Phasocracal is a small nocturnal marsupial. The 3rd option is Falcon Terrace, which is based off the black falcon and is critically endangered, only found in mainland Australia and the largest of 6 species of falcons. The honeyeater close, so critically endangered, medium-sized bird of extraordinary beauty. And option 5 is swift court, which is after swift parrot, which is critically endangered, and therefore it is the officer's recommendation that Council 1 review the naming options of the 5 provided and select 3 to apply to the Burke Street development, and 2 submits the selected row names for the lodgement via Sphere.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillors have a recommendation there. Move. Yes.
I'd like to move perhaps that, considering the second one is so hard to say, that we perhaps go with the choices of 3, 4 and 5 if the other councillors are in agreement. Yeah.
And they're all
Put a motion to go with
Yeah,
3, 4 and
incorporate
5, some
endangered.
you've seconded that, thank you.
Yeah.
Councillors, anyone else like to speak to that or?
Only just to say, sorry, that, again, they're very easy to pronounce, but also critically endangered, so it might make it a little bit easier just to, and not be confused with other roads and other areas and that, which I know is part of their discussion. Thank you.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? No? I think the other thing we must keep in mind is it doesn't exclude us at some other time when another roads come up to use those names, Gavilia Drive and number 2.
Fasco Gale.
Fasco Gale.
Fasco Gale.
Fasco Gale, yeah, cool. So
I looked it up, but I cheated.
certainly that. So the recommendation or the motion is that 3, 4, 5. We've had it put forward and we had a second. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.2 NP 52 unnamed road, Beaufort. Ms Erdity again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is for council to give notice of its intent to name an unnamed road in Beaufort, off Hill Street and Callister Streets. Road names can recognise and reflect culture, heritage and landscape. Appropriate naming is essential to identify locations for managing emergencies and delivering goods and services. Therefore, it's important that unnamed roads are reflected accordingly. This unsealed road runs in a southeasterly direction adjacent to several properties and can enable secondary addressing for the properties along the roadway, some of which are accessing their land off the road already. Consideration was given to the unnamed road being a continuation of Hill Street. However, due to the location of Hill Street Road start point and existing street numbering, it would be highly disruptive to multiple residents to impose this option. So there's been 2 options being provided. The first is Mabel Court. The name Mabel Court commemorates Mabel Thomas, 1870 to 1956, who was an Australian community leader, born in Beaufort, educated at Queen's College, Ballarat, and became known for her extensive charitable work in Melbourne. Option 2 is O'Connell Court. So the name O'Connell Court honours Cecily Maud O'Connell, 1884 to 1965, who was an influential Australian trade unionist, social worker and Catholic religious sister, born in Beaufort. It is therefore the officer's recommendation that council selects one of the following options to commence the naming process for the unnamed road in Beaufort. Option 1 being that council commences the naming process to name this unnamed road to Mabel Court or O'Connell Court. That 2, council gives public notice of the proposed naming and asks the public submissions in accordance with section 223 of the Local Government Act. 3, that council writes to relevant surrounding property owners advising of the road naming proposal and invitation for public submissions. And 4, that council adds the preferred option to the Pyrenees Shire Council name bank for future use.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillor, if you've got a recommendation there, would someone like to? Councillor Phelan?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to put forward a recommendation that we adopt Mabel Court as the name. I know that both women obviously have made extraordinary contributions, and it's fabulous to read about their history. So both very worthy of having a street named or a court named after them. Excuse me, what I like about Mabel Court is that it does instantly identify that it is a woman we are naming this after, whereas O'Connell Court doesn't necessarily capture that. So yeah, great to read about the women. I'd move that Mabel Court.
Thank you. Would someone like to second that?
Happy to second that.
Second it, thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak to that?
May I speak too? I think it's brilliant. Again, 2 amazing women. I actually know more about Cecily, I think I said her name correct, a little bit more, but again, to put her name on the name bank. We couldn't use more though, can we? Or Cecily, because we've already got something. It was a duplication, but I do agree too, exactly. We want people to recognise that We are recognising incredible women that were both born, you know, single times, but they came here from both it and they made an incredible impact across so many people and across our state and nation. So, yeah, very honoured to back that too.
Any other councillors which wish to speak to those? I just support what Councillor Keogh has said. It's really fantastic that we recognise some of those pioneering women in our area, and they recognise the a road name which is, you know, very much ongoing, and there's there for history to see, and there's a little bit of history behind it. And of course, whichever one we select, it doesn't mean that certainly doesn't mean that the other ones that's not selected at this time won't be selected somewhere else, and that, in fact, that will most likely be the case. So, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.3, Policy Council Naming Policy. Jacinta Erdogan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider the updated naming policy for adoption and utilisation throughout council, where council is utilising their powers as a naming authority under the Local Government Act. Policies require a review on a regular basis to ensure that rules and guidance remain relevant, effective and aligned with council plan, objectives and values. The review updated policy will help council to meet our requirements as a naming authority by providing clear and consistent approach to naming. It's therefore the Office of Recommendation that council adopts the naming policy for use at Pyrenees Shire Council, replacing the previous policy operational principles on road naming.
Thank you, Ms Erdogan. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Someone like to second it? Thank you. Would you like to speak on that? Anyone like to speak on that one? All those in favour? Thank you. This takes us to 11.2.4, Yellow Waipora Road Fire Recovery Up. Ms Erdogan, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on council activities relating to the Streatham Scrub Grass Fire that started on 9th of January 2026, impacting the Pyrenees Shire communities. There is significant detail within the body of this report that I will not speak to. However, a couple of key things that should be noted. The contribution of staff and community demonstrates the importance of working together. Recovery is the long-term program to support affected communities not only recover, but build networks of initiatives that support the community beyond the event. Recruitment has commenced for the contract community recovery officer to support the long-term recovery from this event. And a project working group is being established for the Caramballic Recreation Reserve, which will focus on ensuring the development of a master plan and action plan to restore and develop this important community facility. It is therefore the Office of Recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the information provided in the report. 2, seeks a further update on recovery progress be provided in March 2026. And 3, continues to advocate for assistance from government to support the community recovery.
Thank you, Ms Erdogan. Just a question, if I can, please. I sit on the Skipton Fire Community and Business Recovery Network, which is really good and it's well represented. A question came there last Thursday about when the recovery officer or recovery manager would be appointed for Pyrenees. Is anyone able to shed some light on that, please? Thank you, Mr Nolan.
Happy to respond to that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
So the Victorian Government made funding available for councils to apply relating to community recovery officers for this event, and council has commenced a recruitment process to recruit a recovery officer in that position, potentially 1 or 2, depending on the number of applications. We have had a number of applications received and we're in the process of recruiting there. We expect to have an officer in place in the coming weeks. In the interim, we have some support from the City of Ballarat and also through Emergency Recovery Victoria for officers' support to assist in some of that early recovery activity.
Thank you, Mr Nolan. Councillor, we've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move? Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Second it. Boys,
May I move a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, can I move a motion just for a slight
an alternate, a
amendment?
new motion, yep.
Please, just to expand on the third point there, which is continue to advocate for assistance from government to support the community recovery. Can we include here that we identify where there are any gaps between the funding that comes through the recovery program that isn't meeting the requirements of communities on the ground? So if there is a gap in funding, or perhaps where the guidelines don't reflect the realities for communities on the ground, it would be a very good opportunity for us to identify those specific examples and use that as part of our advocacy to government. Thank you.
So you're moving that as a new motion. Would someone like to second that?
Long-winded, sorry, but
That's fine.
Maybe
Just to clarify the wording, so
we're just going to clarify the wording
thank you.
because
Yes, it was very long-winded,
So-
sorry.
No, it's all good.
so thank you, councillor. So 1 and 2 remain as is, and number 3, is continue to advocate for assistance from government to support community recovery, including identifying any gaps in funding where current funding guidelines don't reflect the reasonable costs on the ground.
Yeah, that don't reflect the costs on the ground or the actual costs of recovery.
Actual costs, yeah.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you. That's clarified. You still happy to second that, councillor?
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak further on that, councillor Phelan?
Thank you. Just to note that there, what we are seeing and certainly what we're hearing from the community is that as particularly representatives from government are coming and inspecting areas that some departments are saying it doesn't fall within their area of responsibility, and so then they're being asked to forward requests to other departments. And I think the real challenge is for our communities who are suffering from these disasters. They're actually sitting with live risks as a result of these matters not being addressed in a timely way. And of course, as much as, again, we as council want to step in and take immediate action, it's also very challenging or very difficult for us to be able to take that action without the certainty that we will be reimbursed for those costs in a timely fashion. So it comes back to that point about financial sustainability and the financial position that we're in. So I think it would be really good to be able to provide state government, and if some of the funding is coming from federal government, to be able to identify where the current guidelines as being applied aren't actually meeting the needs of communities on the ground. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Phelan. Councillor Kerr?
Yes, please. Again, just related to this report, totally agree with all of that as well. And I think because this recovery effort is going to be continual, and we know with our previous events that we're continually trying to learn to how best support our communities, but also even in light of understanding where they can go for that support and where we can get that grant support, trying to cut through that red tape, which we've heard again and again right from the start is what holds us back sometimes, being able to be as active as we can. So again, a lot of the government officials and that have come through, we need to keep making that really loud and clear, which I think we're doing particularly with the community advocacy groups. In light of that though, it was incredible. A huge thanks. We've talked about council's involvement. The community were incredibly felt supported, right, especially immediately, not from council staff and people being able to be there. Us being able to open the relief centre was brilliant. It provided a space for people to go, a safe space and within the community, which was really significant for them. And then to be able to jump on the recovery. Now, Recovery, of course, always has ups and downs, but if we kept focus on that, which the recovery group is, and the reports aligning that and the community wishes, also particularly with the Caramballic Hall, which is a really, it's one part of it, but it's a big part for that whole area that was really greatly affected. And from the start, that's a really important area that we can help and are really committed to doing that. So just that's just thank you that's included in there, and that is the focus. But again, thanks to council staff that did jump on and do such a wonderful job. But thank you to those that are continuing on that, and that we keep that communication very close to the affected community there, that we continue highlighting new concerns that come up or risks that are sitting there. Like Megan was saying, that they are still concerned about trees and all that. I know council's working on this, but just highlighting that again, which this report does. I'm really thankful for that. So, yeah, just to thanks, but also that we keep an eye on these things as well.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak? Councillor Wardlaw.
I'd like to reiterate what you've just said, Councillor Kehoe. The work that everyone has done has been extraordinary. But I'd just like to make note that, you know, as the emergency decreases, subsides, the long-term suffering of the community still increases. You know, that we can't forget that the emotional costs that are currently being felt after the fire. And I believe truly that it's our role as the council for the community that we need to ease that stress wherever possible. So by doing what we're doing, by advocating, by finding the funding, by filling their tanks, whatever it may be. So, you know, my main thing is that, yeah, we've got all these things happening, but we can't forget the people. That's really, really important.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would back up what all the other councillors have said about the recovery and the individuals and the council staff and everyone that's helped in the recovery. And this report's about recovery. And I hope to God that DECA and our insurance companies come to sense and pay out what's owed on the insurance policy for the Caramballic facility. It's going to be a real test case to see where that goes. And let's hope they can expedite that problem and deliver what's needed for a new facility.
Thank you, Councillor Toll. Really good discussion, and we all share those same sentiments, and a lot of this gets discussed in depth at the meetings of the Skipton Fire Community and Business Recovery Network, which is held every Thursday. And that's a mixture of the three councils, relevant agencies and community representatives. And it's really, really worthwhile, and some really good discussions. I think it's worth noting a couple of things. The recovery process is very much ongoing and will be for some time, a long time to come. And it's in conjunction with the Corangamite and the Ararat Council. So it's Pyrenees, the Corangamite and the Ararat Councils working together to try and achieve the best results for the communities affected. There's certainly identified gaps, and there's a lot of frustration from the community. The amount of red tape and bureaucracy in receiving assistance, both financial and professional. So that's a really constant theme. That's certainly been highlighted to the relevant authorities and the government, the responsible government, mostly the state government, and we'll continue to do that. But you know, there's no denying there's a significant level of frustration from the community about they need the help now, and they need some certainty now. The other thing is there's a central relation to one of the points that Councillor Phelan made in relation to our network meeting. What we identified earlier, that the essential point for inquiry, regardless of the requests, and they receive the information and assistance in a timely manner, so they don't get the shove around about you ring here, I'll go and ring there, and then in the end they just say, well, I can't be bothered because I've got to run around. So we're very, very conscious of that, and that's in progress, in place. And I think it's working quite well. I'll know after this Thursday because we've got another meeting, so I'm hoping it's going well. And I think the other thing that's just really quickly important is the three councils find ourselves meeting costs as councils that we are not responsible for convenience, for expedience and all those things. And then, of course, the next big thing is we have to keep our fingers crossed in the hope that we get reimbursed for those costs, which doesn't always happen. So That's certainly a big gap. We need the money, we need it now, and if you haven't got it, the community can't wait. They need assistance now, so the councils find themselves stumping up some money for things that are not actually, they're not responsible. We do it in the goodwill for the community, but we're not responsible for it. But then we have to worry for the next however long whether we're going to get that reimbursed. So there's certainly a lot of gaps. There's a lot of learnings out of it, but the recovery is very much ongoing and will be for as long as it needs to be until the community's back to where they need to be. So we've got a recommendation there, councillors. All those in favour? Thank you. That brings us to 11.2.5, December 2025 quarterly financial report. Ms. Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the council with an update on financial performance for the period 1 July 2025 to 31 December 2025 and seek council direction on rating levels for 25-26 financial year to assist with budget preparation. The provision of regular reports of council's financial performance ensures that council's financial management and associated processes are accountable, transparent and responsible. There's a number of issues raised through the report, and the one of most awareness is around our rate collection, which is currently behind previous financial years. And there's also some reviews being undertaken in relation to our capital works program and capacity to deliver all of those projects. So the rate cap for 25-26 financial year has been set at 2.75%, and there is a separate report listed in the agenda for council to decide if it wishes to seek a rate cap variation. The review of the financials for the period ending 31 December 2025, there is no requirement for council to prepare a revised budget. The review has ascertained that the financials for the 25-26 year are operating within council's 10-year financial plan. It is therefore the officer's recommendation that council 1 receives and notes the financial performance report for the period 1 July 2025 to 31 December 2025 and the projected forecast for the year. 2, resolves that there is no requirement to prepare a revised budget as per the CEO declaration that pursuant to section 97(3) of the Local Government Act 2020, there is no requirement that the Pyrenees Shire Council prepare a revised budget. And 3, resolves a further report to be presented to council in March 2026, providing an update on rate collection results for the period ending February 2026.
Thank you, Ms. Erdity. Councillors, there's a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that, please? Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Waldor. Councillor Phelan, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think as the theme for this evening is financial position and sustainability. I think just seeing the capital works program there and the variance between the budget and the forecast now shows that we will really struggle to deliver on that capital works program. In fact, it would probably be very irresponsible of us to deliver on that program. So council does need to consider what are the essential works that need to take place and which are works that can be held off or that potentially we can seek additional funding for. I think so, yeah, really illustrates the challenge, and particularly with rates being capped and the reduced income that council is receiving. It's an ongoing discussion that we will need to have, I think, and consider as we prepare the budget for next financial year. Thank you.
Councillor Woodward. Any other councillors wish to speak on any of that? Yeah, I think it again highlights as council we've got to continually review and everything that comes before us, especially when there's a price tag attached to it. We can't just accept it, we have to review it, and we get great support from our officers in providing those costs. And I think the other thing is, it's just timing too, because we've had another disaster come upon us and it's tragic, which has cost the council a lot of money. I do know that it costs the community and individuals a lot of money as well, and there are things that are just out of our control, but they just put a massive spanner in the works, so to speak, and it costs us a lot of money. So we just got to continually review. So all those in favour? Thank you. That brings us to 11.2.6, the Historical Society Rates Waiver. Ms Erdedy again, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report seeks council to consider the issue of whether rates should continue to be waived for the 4 Historical Society properties located within Pyrenees Shire: Snake Valley and District Historical Society, Beaufort Historical Society, Avoca Historical Society and Landsborough. These properties had previously had their rates paid by Working Heritage, previously known as the Mint Inc., who managed all the unused courthouses in Victoria. A change in registration of old courthouses in 2022 has passed the management costs onto organisations such as volunteer historical societies who cannot afford it, leaving little choice but for council to absorb and waive costs that would normally form part of its limited revenue base. It is acknowledged that historical societies provide an invaluable resource to the Shire and beyond as custodians and promoters of precious local history. Pursuant to the Local Government Act, these properties cannot be deemed as non-rateable. However, council, through a council resolution, can deem to waive the rates associated with the properties each year. It is therefore the Officer recommendation that council resolve to waive the rates on the 4 Historical Society properties within the Pyrenees municipality for the 26-27 financial year.
Thank you, Ms Erdedy. Councillors have a recommendation there. Moved by Councillor Kerr. Anyone like to see it? Councillor Wardle, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Kerr?
I will, and I know tonight's financial theme is running hot, but again, our historical societies, they absolutely operate on the smell of an oily rag, and they do such a wonderful job. It's so invaluable, the work they do. I think it's that, and they just don't have that option to generate that money to pay that sort of thing. So I know it is a cost to us, but I think it's a very valuable one, and one that's very valuable in the return.
Thank you, Councillor Wardle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was going to say exactly what Tony said, like there's no, Councillor Kehoe, there's no income being raised from by these groups. They can't earn any money. So, you know, yet they're keeping our history safe and making it available for the next generation. So it's really, really important.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? I agree with that, and we have been, there's been a hot theme, the financial part of our discussions tonight. But those historical societies, they do just such a fantastic job, and it's a lot of those jobs they do are tedious and arduous, difficult, and they do it with limited funds. They haven't got the ability to raise funds, and nearly all of their work is volunteer, and they put in massive amounts of hours. So that's really important. And it's something I sort of come into my mind today, is that the history being recorded in paintings, which is also important, not just narrative, but paintings. And in fact, on the 22nd of this month, this Sunday at 1 p.m, there's a history, it's called the Art Exhibition, is opening at 1 p.m. I think it's Art Tracks. I'll have to double check. No, the Shire Hall, sorry, at the Shire Hall. And it's using art to assist in the recovery from the trauma of the Bayandine fire. So that's really, but it's recording history through that art. So that's another fantastic way we can record history. So recommendation there, all those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.7, rate cap 26.27, Ms Erdedy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with details on the rate cap that is applicable to the 26-27 financial year and seek council determination as to whether an increase above the cap should be sought. The Victorian Government introduced rate capping in 2015-16 financial year under the Fair Go rate system. Each year, the Minister for Local Government sets the rate cap that specifies the maximum councils can increase rates for the forthcoming year. The Minister can set a cap that applies to all councils, a group of councils, or a single council. The Minister makes the decision based on advice from the Essential Service Commission, who considers the Consumer Price Index and their recommendation to the Minister based on CPI forecasts, information from the Reserve Bank of Australia, and taking into consideration affordability concerns. The Essential Service Commission recommended a uniform cap of 2.75% apply for all councils in the 26-27 financial year. The rate cap set for 26-27 means that own source revenue will once again increase at less than administrative expenses for both materials and employee costs. Employee costs increase are not yet set with our existing enterprise bargaining agreement expiring on the 30th of June 2026 and a suite of change negotiation options from the traditional single enterprise bargaining agreement through to multi and single interest agreements, which are providing further uncertainty to what we may be committed to. An important consideration for council in deciding whether to seek a higher rate cap in the past and currently is the financial impact on the community and the ability of ratepayers to pay. In the context of the current economic climate, ongoing drought, the impact of natural disaster events, and the ongoing concerns regarding the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund, it would become a bigger impost on our community should a decision be made to apply for a rate cap above that defined. It is therefore the officer recommendation that Council 1 notes the 2.7 rate cap declared for the 26-27 financial year. 2, having considered the Essential Services Commission requirements to apply for a rate cap, the economic climate and ongoing natural disaster impacts to our community, resolves to not make an application for a higher rate cap for the 26-27 financial year. 3, increase advocacy to the Minister, highlighting the significant sustainability challenges outlined within this report. And 4, work with executive leadership and officers to explore operations through the budget preparations to consider services and alignment to community expectations, benefits and financial sustainability.
Thank you, Ms Erdely. Councillors have a recommendation. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Phelan. I've got a seconder.
Simon.
Councillor Wardlaw. Councillor Phelan, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you. Yes, just briefly, I mean, again, this touches on a few points that we have already raised. We're certainly not wanting to put any further financial pressure on the community that we don't need to. So therefore, I'm supportive of the rate cap for this financial year, but also note that it does mean we have an decreased sort of revenue base that we might otherwise have. So it does require ongoing work to manage the budget and meet the expectations of the community, which they do rightly have. But just noting that we've got that decreased revenue base, I think is it's going to mean we really need to get some comms out to the community about where the gap is in terms of our capacity to deliver. Just noting some of the constraints on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodward. Any other councillors wish to speak to that? I think you make a really good point that Pyrenees, and it's been a constant theme through tonight's meeting and will continue to be, no doubt, about our financial situation and moving forward to be sustainable. So, you know, we've very limited ability to raise funds other than through rates, and hence our requirement to closely review projects and expenditures, and at times make difficult decisions to not proceed with some of those projects and some of that expenditure. But it's just, we have to do that to maintain our sustainability. And I think you make a really good point, Councillor Phelan, that we need to strongly advocate to the appropriate bodies, hence the state government and even Commonwealth government, to say listen, we can't sustain this. It's not sustainable. We need to, we can't take it out on the community. We're not going to take it out on the community. You need to support us and make sure that we remain viable, which in turn helps the community. And so we'll certainly be doing that advocacy. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.8, Audit and Risk Committee, November 2025. Ms Erdity, you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an update of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting MO18 held on 26 November 2025. A copy of the approved minutes from the November 2025 meeting is attached for council information, and an overview of the meeting included a report from the CEO in relation to the election of the 25-26 Mayor and Deputy Mayor, CEO performance review, finalisation of the 24-25 annual report and local government performance reporting, progress on the economic development and investment attraction strategy, an update on the Burke Street Beaufort housing project, and what the 25-26 financial assistance grants provided for. There were also the suite of regular reports and updates regarding internal and external auditors, governance, risk and compliance reporting, a report on progress towards delivering the council plan, a report on fraud control plan progress, and an updated audit and risk committee work plan was presented. Council continues to hold the audit and risk committee meetings in accordance with our legislative obligations and approved charter. It's therefore the officer recommendation that council receives and notes the information contained within this report and its attachment.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillor's got a recommendation. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Phelan, seconded. Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak to that, Councillor Phelan? Councillor Wardlaw?
No, that's fine.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that? All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.9, Council Expenses and Support Policy. Ms Erdity, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The purpose of this report is for council to consider and adopt the reviewed council expense and support policy. The Local Government Act 2020 includes a specific requirement for council to adopt and maintain an expense policy in relation to the reimbursement of reasonable out-of-pocket expenses for councillors and members of delegated committees. The policy through the review has resulted in significant benchmarking of other council expense policies, including those that are provided by the Local Government Inspectorate as good examples of council expense policies. This review, along with engagement and feedback from our elected councillors, has resulted in some changes and refinements to the policy to ensure that council continue to manage reasonable out-of-pocket expenses in a transparent manner. The review of the council expense and support policy has been undertaken in a consultative and collaborative manner with our elected representatives, ensuring good governance and compliance with our legislative requirements. It's therefore the officer recommendation that council adopts version 4 of the council expense and support policy as attached to this report.
Thank you, Ms Erdity. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Councillor Kerr, seconder. Councillor Toll, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Toll, any councillors wish to speak to that? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.2.10, Council Plan Progress Report. Ms Erdity.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report provides a progress update on the delivery of the Council Plan 2025 to 2029 and supporting initiatives as of early February 2026. Work continues to implement the multi-year initiatives designed to support the delivery of the Council Plan, ensuring that delivery of the Council Plan remains foremost in the minds of all officers and business units. However, it is noted that since the adoption of the Council Plan in June 2025, several factors impacting Council's ability to deliver the Council Plan have emerged, including the Stratham fire in January 2026, which has had a significant impact on the community and caused disruption to the organisation, which has needed to prioritise response and recovery activity at the expense of ordinary business activity. Notification by the local government minister of the rate cap for 26-27 of 2.75%, which is well below the December 20 2025 CPI of 3.8%, thereby impacting council's long-term ability to fund services. And the introduction of ministerial guidelines imposing obligations on council in respect of payment of rates and charges and service rates and charges, both of which have financial implications for council. It is suggested that council consider making any adjustments to the council plan once it better understands the impact of the above matters following the 26-27 budget preparation process. It is therefore the officer's recommendation that Council 1 receives and notes the attached progress report against the Council Plan 2025-2029 and supporting delivery initiatives. 2, acknowledges that several external factors beyond its direct control have emerged since the initial adoption of the Council Plan. 3, reviews and adjusts the Council Plan initiatives, if necessary, to ensure they remain aligned with council financial capacity following the conclusion of the 26-27 budget preparation process. 4, prioritise the delivery and implementation of key actions based on updated funding availability and long-term financial sustainability.
Thank you, Ms Erdely. Councillor's got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that?
Can I
Councillor Hill?
move a motion? Oh, sorry. Can I move a motion similar to the one I moved earlier, that with I'm supportive of the recommendations, but for the second recommendation where we do acknowledge.
We'll just find out what the motion.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about process.
Yeah.
Move on. Sorry to speak over you.
We do acknowledge that there are several external factors which are beyond the control of council that have emerged since the adoption of council plan. I think there is an opportunity here for us to again document and consolidate what the external factors are that are impacting council's ability to deliver on the council plan and its broad program of work. So if I can move that that we actually document what those external factors are and how they are impacting council.
And advocate.
And bring that back to council and use it for advocacy. Thank you.
Could someone wants to second that motion? Yep. Councillor Keogh, thank you. Any other councillors wish to speak on that? No. Thank you. I think it's really important to clear with that, Mr. Nolan, the motion was.
Yeah, Mr Mayor. So as I understand it, essentially there's a fifth motion in addition to those that are already there, which seeks that we document what those external factors are that are identified in point 2, and that we bring those back to council to consider as part of our advocacy program.
Thank you. Yes, to identify and quantify the impact would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a really good, and I think we'll be doing this more and more and more, and we can't just leave things to chance. We now got to not only identify them, try and come up with remedies, but we have to know what impact they're going to have on us financially, operationally, and everything else associated with it. And we're just going to have to continue to have some really strong advocacy to try and make this aware to the state and Commonwealth governments, and to get them to accept some responsibility for it, and perhaps most importantly provide some funding for those gaps that were identified to ensure that not just Pyrenees but a lot of small rural councils remain sustainable and can still deliver those services that the community need and deserve. So really good point. All those in favour?
Should we have seconded?
Yeah.
I second it, yes.
Did you wish to speak on that? Sorry.
No.
Any councillors wish to speak on it? No. All those in favour? Thank you. 11.3, Asset and Development Services. Mr. Gowans.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report was prepared to give the council a summary of activities within the Planning and Development Department for the October to December 2025 quarter. There's a fair bit of information in the report, and I won't go through line item by line item, but I'm sure you've had the time to have a look at it. I'll just call out a couple of key points. The planning team received approximately 1,300 inquiries for the calendar year, reflecting ongoing strong demand for planning services. There's also not just planning information here, but building team information, environmental health, and also community safety and amenity information. And on that information, I'd just like to call out parts of the report relating to the fire season. And obviously, the lead up to the fire season was a little bit difficult this year because we had consistent rainfall in late winter and throughout spring, which resulted, it was really late spring that we had the rainfall, and it resulted in exceptional grass and weed growth across the Shire late in the season. And that meant that our roadside slashing program commenced later than we would normally do it because of the conditions, but then it also had impacts as we moved through the Shire because the grass growth was really, really high, and that was observed in cropping areas where there was baling of feed in bales that were very close to each other compared to previous years. Contractors face challenging concerns due to wet ground initially, but then the actively growing green grass. And towards the end of the program, progress was further impacted by early extreme heat and wind conditions. Additional to our slashing program, the community safety and amenity team inspect thousands of properties across the Shire in order to make sure that our communities are protected and that people are undertaking fire prevention activities, which is always their responsibility. This resulted in 627 properties being issued with fire prevention notices. There was a really high compliance, thankfully. 576 of these properties complied. However, there were 35 infringements issued during that quarter, which is a fair number, but it does represent a positive outcome. And there was also negotiated outcomes to reach compliance. And sometimes that's property owners ringing council, seeking some extensions on time because of contractor availability or other particular issues. But we work with landholders to get good outcomes across the Shire. It's the office recommendation that council notes the contents of this report and that council reviews the service level for roadside slashing program as part of the development of the 26-27 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. I do have a couple of questions, if that's possible, please. Do we receive funding for roadside slashing, and what's the amount or approximate figure of that funding?
Council doesn't receive any external funding for roadside slashing. It's part of our operational budget. Our operational budget is in the order of $140,000 each budget year. That does include a small amount, about $10,000 for some spraying that we do early on in the season, but that spraying is very limited to areas where we've been previously sprayed, and there's a history of spraying because you can't introduce spraying into areas that haven't had a history of it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Gowans. And just the second part, I have are resources bolstered during the fire seasons, considering the large amount of properties inspections required during that, from whatever, November to February or whatever?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's a really good question. We have in previous years put some additional resources on. However, it takes a bit to train those resources, and we've found that the time it takes to get those resources up to speed hasn't been the best efficient way to utilise the internal expertise that we have in the team. However, that does mean that they're prioritising fire prevention services above other amenity issues.
Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Councillors have got a recommendation there. Does anyone want to move that recommendation?
I just had one question.
Oh, sorry.
Is that okay?
Yes, go.
Yep. To you, Mr. Gowans, I'm just wondering, how does council decide what roads of ours get slashed? And say there was a road or a lane that was a matter of urgency, what would be involved in perhaps getting that looked at?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mr. Mayor, for your question. Really great question. Council only looks, has prescribed 800 kilometres of its 2,000 kilometre road network that we do slashing or spraying works on. Those works are actually predetermined and have been worked through over a number of reviews through the Victorian Fire Risk Register Committee, as well as the CFA, who sit on the Municipal Emergency Management Plan Committee. So those breaks are strategic breaks that link into other shires as well. So there has to be linkages to where the other shires' strategic breaks are.
Yeah.
And what are their primary purpose? Their primary purpose is about protecting life and protecting life where it's built up in large settlement areas. So therefore, you'll see in our maps of where slashing occurs, that they effectively have lines of breaks on particularly on the southern and western sides of settlement areas, where the roads are lined, because that's predominantly where you'll get fire behaviour impacting settlement areas. There's also part of the work in determining those roads to be done is also about egress. So making sure that those roads are egress roads for people in a fire. So they're normally our higher hierarchy roads. So most of the roads are sealed roads, not all of them, but most are sealed roads, as it provides a break. We do understand though that people are concerned about long grass on the side of a whole range of roads. There's a whole range of factors that have to come into play, including, is there much benefit in trying to remove fine fuels around heavily treed areas? It's determined that that's not actually a great use of resources. And however, we do let property owners, if they want to slash their progress outside on the road reserve, we do provide permission where it adjoins their property that they can undertake that work if it's not a prescribed area. So people can do that, but it's only part of the picture. The roadside slashing. There's also a responsibility on landholders to ensure that their properties are safe and maintained for fire protection as well.
I'm happy to move and then talk. We haven't moved it yet, have we? Moved it seconded?
No, someone like, council got a recommendation. Would someone like to move that?
I'll move it.
Second, councillor Wilbur.
Beautiful. Thank you. Is that all right, Mr. Reid?
Yeah, sure.
I thank you, and I'm just following on to what Councillor Wardlaw was saying, that you do review the service levels. I think to a seasonal response, I know it's very tricky to do that, and again, finance again tonight, it is a huge part of our budget, and we have to be very judicial over that, but like our farmers have to change seasonally, we really need to, as I said in another past meeting, we need to be ready to react or respond to that, and we can't be putting out fire notices if we're not being able to meet our needs, or our contractors rather being able to meet those needs that we're asking of them, width of slashing, etc., that sort of stuff. And I'm just wondering to do a bit of an audit of that to be able to better utilise those funds. How can we do that, or is there a way we do that, or is an audit more on responses from community? Could that be, maybe it's more of a question, sorry Mr. Gowans, on how we can better service those areas that community feel really need to be looked at. Also within the service review, are we looking, I think you've actually started looking into this, but at least getting intersections and that done for the safety of our community is an early priority. But again, getting back to that seasonal response, if we need to do two one year, we do. If we just do one later another year, that we can have that flexibility. Another one, which may or may not be, again, looking at the fiscal situation we're in, can we maybe reward farmers who can do, outside their area or further even, although you said they're only legally allowed to do outside their farms, a bit of a rebate on their rates. I've been asked by this, so I thought I would put this out there. Could that be a possibility to then take some of the burden off the contractors and cost off the contractors and reward our farmers? Not sure whether that's even feasible, but would like to put it out there. You might have a response to that straight away, but thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Keogh, a whole range of issues that you raised there. Look, I think if council were in a better financial position, how we undertake roadside slashing, it is everyone's responsibility, absolutely, and we absolutely appreciate the work that individual farmers and often CFA members do on roadsides. There are some practices that we need to make sure are properly managed, because roadsides also contain native vegetation. We've got some responsibilities around native vegetation, how we manage native vegetation. So, we know that some of the best fire breaks are ploughed breaks, but that has some really big impacts on native vegetation, and it's not allowed effectively. There's only a very few circumstances where plough breaks are allowed, where there's been a long history of them occurring. But slashing is more allowable. There are still some things that we need to keep in place around ensuring that native vegetation isn't adversely affected, because some people can slash really, really low to the ground, which effectively has a negative impact on the native vegetation as well. So there are some rules around how the practice of roadside slashing needs to be done to protect all those different range of competing issues that are there. In terms of intersection safety, you're right, beyond our strategic program, we also have a safety program, which is about making sure intersection sight distance on council managed roads are maintained, and we can do that more regularly in response to conditions. So it's not just a once a year scenario. However, it does come at a cost, and we do have to do it on a as needs basis, but we've got an obligation as the road manager to ensure site safety. In terms of fire breaks and the width of fire breaks, it isn't always fence to fence. It's based on conditions. It's based on the Victorian Fire Risk Register. And you'll also notice even on Vic Roads managed roads that they have different approaches to how they undertake various prescribed works. Sometimes the fence to fence approach, as much as people would like that, is not always appropriate from managing the safety across the Shire. We have to manage the budget that we have, and we have to undertake the works when we can do them. But so we're always looking at the seasons. We sometimes, but it does come at a cost, have to go back to areas and do a second slash, but that obviously comes at a cost. And our budget does not afford us to do a second slash right across the Shire. So we do sometimes go back to areas where grass growth has come back after we've done initial slashing. So that's why we've got to get the program timing right at the right time. But sometimes when that envelope of time that we've got available to us because of the season changes so quickly, we are in a position where we struggle to get the whole program done at the perfect time.
Yep. Sorry, just a very quick follow-up one. I wasn't sort of talking fence to fence. Sorry, I understand that. We've had that conversation. Yep. It was just I had more than one report, more than a few reports of barely any sort of width on the edge that, whether or not they were trying to avoid an obstacle, but yep. Some landowners were like, if the contractor's doing that, I could do a far better job sort of thing for you.
So thank you, and a really good question. So what we call that initial cut is a safety cut. So sometimes the contractor makes a call to do a safety cut, and that's often because of the short window in which we've got to do some of the prescribed works. but it's also if the sides are really wet underneath, sometimes the safety cut's the only thing you can do without getting the machines bogged. So I think people forget in late November, it was really, really wet. And that's when our slushing program is being undertaken. So I think it's easy to think about the season that we have right now and not the lead up to when we're undertaking that slushing. So sometimes that safety cut it's always the intention to come back, but that safety cut is to provide that first level of safety so that you can traverse that area and you've got less likely a fire igniting from the immediate road use as well.
I've got some more, but you might ask later because you might keep going too.
Any other questions? Councillor Phil?
Sorry, I did also have a question. Sorry, Mr. Barnes. Just are we advertising or is the public aware of the prescribed roads on that network? Because it would be very good if they could see which roads are prescribed. And also, do we advertise or do we let residents know that they can slash on council reserves immediately outside their property? Because I've certainly had a number of community members come to me saying, you know, we get fined if we're not slashing, and yet look at, you know, council land next door. So I think we need to be really clear on the limitations of our slashing program, and that if I think you advised that the prescribed road network has been advised by CFA and others, but then what local landowners can do, what steps they can take to keep that area safe.
Yeah. Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Phelan, for your question. Really, really good question, because you're right, it's information that does, and questions that we get as officers regularly as well. So just in terms of our prescribed areas, my understanding is that they are on our website. So the roads that we do, there's maps of where we do particular, and also what type of cut we do, whether it's 3 metres behind the goalpost, whether it's fence to fence. So that information's available. It's also available through our municipal emergency management plan. There's a prescribed works component of that municipal emergency management plan. My understanding is there is information on our website that provides information about if you'd like to do slashing outside your property, how you can go about that and what you're allowed to do. So, but I'm happy to look into that a bit further and make sure those links are available.
Thank you, Mr. Gowns. Any other questions in relation to that? I think it would be fair to say that was really good discussion, and again, we just need to get that information out to the community. But I think it's fair to say that we get all these extra questions, particularly after we have a disaster such as a fire, and fire relevant and long grass questions become higher priority than they normally would be. So it's all really good discussion. Thank you. Councillors, all those in favour? Thank you. 11 brings us 11.4.1 Tiny Towns Fund. Mr. Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on the Tiny Towns Fund and to seek your support for letters of support that have been provided to those community groups that have applied. Tiny Towns Fund is open to towns with a population of 5,000 people or less in 48 LGAs. So we qualify on many fronts there. We have lots of small towns. It is essentially for backing community-driven projects that enhance small towns, strengthen community connections and encourage more visitors. Grants between 5,000 and 50,000 are available for each project, and all applicants are required to make financial contributions. Now, fund is open to incorporate not-for-profit community organisations and local government authorities. If councils are to apply for these funds, council is required to make a 25% cash contribution to the total project amount, not-for-profits are required to provide a 20% contribution, which may include 50% in kind. It's council, has to be in cash. It's community group, 50% of their contribution needs to be in kind. And part of council strategy around here is to support community groups to make applications for these funds directly. And the community wellbeing team has been doing a lot of work working with these community groups to do that. Applications close on the 4th of March. There's a list of 8 groups that we're aware of that we have either provided or in process of providing letters of support for, and then there's another 9 that we know of that we're intending to work on applications. So given that that letters of support have been provided to these, it is what council is sought here is to acknowledge the range of submitted projects, potential funding applications to round 3 of the Tiny Towns Fund, and endorses the provision of letters of support provided at the discretion of the Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Nolan. Councillor's recommendation there. I think moved Councillor Phelan, seconded Councillor Wardlaw. Do you want to speak to that, Councillor Phelan?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for noting that there are a lot of tiny towns across our shire and also particularly in Decameron Ward. We've spoken a lot tonight about the financial position of council and the need to be sustainable. But I think, you know, an equally important consideration for us and that we frequently discuss is that for towns to be sustainable, they need community infrastructure. And there's some really important infrastructure here. I know I could point to so many of the different applications, but if I think about, for example, the Landsborough Bowls Club, it's one of, you know, 2 remaining assets really that the town can connect at, gather at, have, you know, leisure and sporting activities. It's essential for older people in the community. So I really just want to say this, you know, these facilities, whether it's a full facility or an upgrade to a facility or upgrading the toilets to make sure they're accessible, this is so vital for all of the tiny towns. And also when these facilities are in a good state of repair and accessible, it actually allows the communities and the committees of management to, you know, come up with great ideas for events and to fundraise. It really increases their capacity to generate revenue. So great to see the number of applications already coming through. I know definitely that some on the status unknown list are absolutely continuing to work on applications, and I'll be following up with them and encouraging them to get in touch with council. I'll also be providing letters of support for some of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Wardlaw, would you like to speak?
No, that's fine.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? Councillor Keogh?
No, just to endorse that too. And again, a lot of these groups, these are similar to the historical societies. They work endlessly for our communities. They're holding our communities together. And again, the valuable input they put into the communities outweighs any sort of money that we have to put forward for that. So thanks, definitely endorse.
Any other councillors wish to speak on that? All those in favour? Thank you. Brings us to 11.4.2, the Warburg Recreation Reserve Netball Schools Planning, Mr. Nolan. There's a declaration of conflict there. Councillor Toll is on the Warburg Recreation Reserve Committee, so we can excuse. So please, Councillor Toll, and we'll come and get you when we're finished with the
Take your time.
recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is to seek council's endorsement of a contributing additional funding to the Warburg Recreation Reserve Facilities Planning Project. As council are aware, a master plan was developed following extensive community and stakeholder consultation and endorsed by council. And the plan identified the need to modernise the reserve's facilities to meet growing participation and accessibility demands, particularly for netball. To project the priority project, detailed design and documentation are required to ensure alignment with Netball Victoria's funding design standards and to prepare the project for future construction funding opportunities. So the purpose effectively of this planning project is to get the project shovel ready so that we're able to apply for funding for the infrastructure upgrade for the netball facilities and the revised netball courts. And in Council's 25-26 budget, Council approved an allocation of $60,000 towards this strategic planning work for those facilities. The actual maximum amount to be able to be obtained through this funding stream is $40,000. The total cost to undertake the planning work is $130,000. So a further $30,000 is required to be able to be sourced from an operating budget if the application is successful. So an application has been submitted along those lines on the basis that $30,000 would be obtained from the 26-27 operating budget. And so council, there is a recommendation there that council endorse the submission made to the local sports infrastructure fund planning stream for a detailed planning work for the Walker netball facilities and allocates an additional $30,000 from its 26-27 operating budget if required to the Walker Recreation Reserve Netball Facilities Planning Project to support completion of the full planning and design scope sought.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. Councillors, you've got a recommendation there. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Woodall, seconder. Councillor Keogh, would you like to speak to that? Councillor Woodall?
I actually, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just curious, as the whole night has been about spending money and where we're going to get it from and how we're going to do it. So if we're talking about an additional 30,000, I am like completely in support of it due to the other things that have been getting built down in Warburg and we really want to get these things finished. So I'm all for that. I'm just wondering though, this extra 30,000 rather than the operational budget, is that something that we couldn't throw at the electricity people?
Some additional, so apply for some external
Yeah,
funding
from
sources.
the Western Renewables or
Yeah.
you know, those
External
companies,
funding
just
sources.
because we are really, really strapped. I mean, I'm sure it's something we can manage, but I do think perhaps we need to look at external.
So do you
sources.
wish to move a
Yes.
motion
Yes,
That's-
move a motion to seek external funding for the
from
extra
external sources?
30,000 if possible, where possible.
You've got a seconder for that?
Yes, I'm happy to second that, but I did also have a question.
Yes.
If I could. For Mr. Nolan, can you just advise of what changed, if anything, from our initial allocation or budgeting of 60,000 for this project? Has there been a change in the scope of the works, or why didn't we budget initially, or did we budget initially for the full planning required for that work? If that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. To my knowledge, we weren't actually really aware of the full scope of what was required in this. There have been ongoing discussions with SRV officers in respect of what their expectation is in respect of getting a project shovel ready. So there was some dialogue, that has then informed what we need to do to actually scope out the full project. That's my understanding.
Councillor Kerr?
The only thing I would say, I think with the WRL, they've already got a lot of, is that correct? A lot of the funding for the actual project again, so whether or not they can get that extra, which is why I believe we might be needing to put that in, but I'll be, have that rectified if need be, Mr. Nolan. So, and I think the amount of money and effort that's gone into it up to this point, it's another thing where if we don't spend the money now, will it explode again and the project not happen? To complete this project that again the community put so many hours and so much effort into, and to them and council workers. We've had so many council workers and that supporting this community group to do that. If this is the last bit, but again, I totally understand if we can get it somewhere else, we'd definitely endorse that. I just think we might need to keep in the back of our mind a lot of the other money for the actual cost of the project has already been committed. Contingent on this finalisation of the master plan, Mr. Nolan, is that correct? Or not? Is that correct? Sorry, Mr. Nolan, I should have posed it as a question.
Sorry, I didn't understand.
So sorry, the question really is like, is it contingent, because the WRL and others have put the money into the actual building of the project, not the master plan, is that correct? Or, oh no, they haven't, oh no, good, perfect. Sorry, that's a clarification I wanted.
So just in answer to that, the master plan was actually funded by council. It was undertaken internally, principally. And that was on the basis that the master plan was a necessary step in this process, and that council didn't have the funds to engage a consultant to do it. So it's principally done internally with internal resources. Seeking funding from external resources can be from any other sources, and it's not dependent at all in any way on WRL.
Okay, cool.
No, so totally.
Thanks.
Yeah, with that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other further questions, councillors? I think, again, we like to give all these things the tick we can, but I'm going back to what I've said throughout the meeting about us having to continually review these projects and be very, very mindful of the costs, even down to smaller amounts, and if we can try and source them from an alternative source rather than using council funds. But we're certainly aware of the community's needs and expectations, but the community also has an expectation that we're very, very conscious and careful with the funds that are provided that we spend throughout the year. So we've got that alternative recommendation. So all those in favour? Thank you. Can we get... Thank you, Mr. Gowans. Thank you, Councillor Toll. That brings us to item 12, councillor reports and general business. So I might go as per the situation here. So Councillor Keogh.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mount Emu Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we've already spoken about this evening, the biggest event we've had in our area have been the fires at Streatham. It was an event which will remain in our memories as very impactful. And on that Friday after that happened, the incredible response from community on the Friday to support community and keep community and outlying communities safe was immensely well executed, as well as we possibly can. We always learn from these. Chris, the ICC mentioned we always learn from these incidents, and this one particularly we learned about messaging out to community, how we can better do that, how we can better alleviate panic and stress within the community if we can be very clear and then be able to get people back into their houses and their properties as soon as possible. So that was one big learning there. But there are a number of community meetings. They were really well attended. On the next day, on the Saturday, I attended one at Streatham with our CEO, Jim Nolan, and we also went to Skipton. Again, as it's already been mentioned, there was an incredible response from ourselves, Ararat and Corangamite, to be able to get there to support people and make sure we could monitor the situation as closely as possible until it was completely brought into a safe capacity and to be able to move people back, particularly into the Skipton area, but also people back into that area of Streatham there. There were further meetings further later in that week again, so we could continue to support the community until we were able to move into the recovery mode. But again, the Relief Centre provided a lot of support to community, and we thank all the officers and that were part of that. And we'll continue to even be more efficient when we look at in the face of these disasters again. I did attend then a beautiful community barbecue at the Stoneleigh CFA on the Sunday after, and again it was just an absolute epitome of how amazing our community is. Everyone pitched in and put on the barbecue to make sure, more so at that stage, just to check that people's emotional and mental welfare and well-being was considered. But it truly absolutely makes me so proud to be part of that community there, to see all those people coming together to support each other, those that were affected, but those that weren't affected but wanted to support their neighbours. Absolutely incredible. So I thank everyone who's done that immediately at the start. Also others from surrounding areas who donated food and fodder and water when it was needed. And there were groups, there were businesses, there were individuals, but everyone has worked so hard. And again, I send a huge thank you to those that did that immediately and continue to do that in our recovery efforts. Also, there's been fantastic fundraisers. I was able to attend both a cricket one. I've assisted with prepping and serving dinners with the Blaze Aid, actually with the CFA, both at the ladies, but feeding the Blaze Aid volunteers down at the Skipton depot there. So again, thank you to all those volunteers that are out there fencing and supporting our farmers, but also those supporting them. So that's been incredible. I'll also be a speaker at the Royal Hotel at Snake Valley, running an event on the 27th of February. This will be, again, an incredibly enjoyable fundraiser, but a poignant one in raising money for the Carambellac Wreck Reserve. So if you haven't got your ticket, make sure you do get your ticket for that event on the 27th of February. Also, I attended a meeting with the Carambellac Reserve that Council put together with DECA. It was, a lot of issues were highlighted there that we need to work on, particularly dangerous trees and demolishing the building there, and all the added concerns we have there, not being a council-owned land, but being in charge of things like the insurance and that. But very thankful to council staff who are working with DECA and with those amazing communities that use that facility down there to look for a very hopeful way forward, that we can re-establish what needs to be there and support the community there. I thank, again, I've thanked individuals, but it's been incredible, the resilience from the community down there, the one-on-one meetings I've had, the group meetings I've had, the phone calls. Again, just shout out, just an incredible community. Moving off the fire, I've had a number of RCV, Rural Councils Victoria, meetings being on the executive to prepare an advocacy forum that's occurring this week. We're trying to get access, or have got access, to relevant politicians to really highlight the absolute immense pressure that's on rural councils such as us that really must be addressed immediately. So looking forward to some really strong outcomes there and advocacy through that. I attended the incredible Australia Day event. Again, what an incredible community to put on such an awesome event for from younger to older members of our community. It was really a wonderful day, and an honour to be there with our amazing citizens who won their awards, and also people who became new citizens of our area. That day I was also able to go with the family to the Beaufort Pool, and I've never seen it as packed as it was that day. But again, from young to old, they were enjoying such an incredible resource that we have. It's really wonderful, though, everyone making use of that. And also coming together as a community. It was an incredible day, Australia Day this year for us. I've had the Carnham Rec Reserve AGM. again, a shout out. They're doing amazing things there. I'll leave it at that, but they're incredible. And on a very positive note, as a real hopeful event that happened down at the Caramballoch area, although it didn't happen at the reserve this year, but the Harvest team again put on an incredible event. They had an alternate venue, but they were still able to raise so many funds that then go back into the community. So even though they could have easily been excused for not running the event, they jumped on board and ran an incredible event again. So you are incredible. Thank you, everyone, for the last month and a bit. It's been a bit crazy. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Kerr. Councillor Toll, Essendon Ward.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Apart from all the bits and pieces there that I've listed, it's a fairly extended period of time we're reporting on here, so there's going to get a few things missed, but I just concur with councillor Keogh that the terrific work that all the volunteers in the communities in the Shire and all the organisations have done in the recovery process. Don't want to list individuals, but, you know, I've attended a few meetings down at Stratham and Skipton, and, you know, we're probably one thing if out of all the fire is it started later in the day rather than early, otherwise it would have stopped at Shelford, but, and it would have been far worse, but if that's a positive that came out of it, that'd be it, but we're by nowhere out of the fire season yet, and we've got to be vigilant, and, you know, once again, it represents the hard work our CFA volunteers and communities do, and that's why we're in there batting for them with the ESVF. What else have we done? The Waubra Rec Reserves had a few projects going on lately. It's been a bit time consuming with various issues there, but the playground is looking superb if anyone's had a chance to see it. It's up and it's about and nearly waiting on the softball, I think, is being installed next week, and it's really, there's a lot of people in the community really excited about it. There's a lot of people calling in, driving past, stopping there, so, and then to find they can't use it. So anyway, it'll get there. Had a meeting down at Lexington recently with the hub committee down there, and they're pursuing Central Highlands Water to get access from the reservoir there to get some water to do the golf course and the football oval, and they want to resurface the football oval as well. Did have a chance to meet with Bev McCarthy, Joe McCracken, who introduced us to Jess Wilson over at the Flywheel Cafe recently, which was interesting, and fairly positive outcomes coming out of that. What else? One worrying thing that was brought to my attention last week was that a company by the name of South Energy are running around the Ercildown Ward at the moment, sticking notices on people's fences, looking to acquire land for solar farms. So watch this space on that one. There's a bit of a push for that, so that'll be interesting. Finally, just like to thank the Waterloo community. John Coshan and his team did a superb job for a committee that's only been going recently. They're really doing a great job, but look forward to an exciting year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Toll. Councillor Phelan, Decameron Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A little bit of a quieter month in terms of community meetings, but mine, the two that really stuck out for me, of course, I think same as others, go from the very sobering to the inspiring, and of course we're going on the visit with the Mayor and Councillor Wardlaw to the fire affected areas, and seeing, you know, some of the tree stumps still smouldering, seeing the devastation at the Caramballoch Reserve was very emotional and moving. I mean, I can only imagine how the community members are impacted seeing that day in, day out, and of course some that have lost their homes. I wrote in my councillor column, seeing that very stark image of the sole remaining structure standing being a burnt chimney stack, brick chimney stack, is a very powerful image, and yeah, my heart goes out to all of those affected. But of course, then it was beautifully contrasted with the very inspiring Australia Day event, and just seeing, of course, the amazing contributions of those who actually won the awards, but also all of those who were nominated. We really could have chosen any number of people to have been the recipient of those rewards. So yeah, it's an inspiring reminder of the great work that so many community members and groups contribute to the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Phelan. Councillor Wardlaw of Oak Award.
Thank you. As the others have said, the visit to the fire affected communities was very humbling, very surreal. But I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to go, and then to go into the resource centre that was set up at Skipton and, you know, just be amongst it all. There wasn't a lot us as individuals could do, but we were there in spirit and available wherever we could be. And my hat goes off to all the volunteers and all the people that have lost even, the livestock. I think about all of that. So it's been a really trying time. We're moving forward. There are fundraisers coming up, as Councillor Kehoe mentioned, and hopefully people get behind those and do support them as best as possible. I also went to the Australia Day of Ochre breakfast that's run by the Men's Shed, which is always a good one. They do a fantastic job. There's always way too much food, but they get a really good turnout, and it's good to see. And the men that are running it, you can see that they're very passionate about it. They love to do it, and yeah, I don't think you'd have them anywhere else on that morning of the year, which we then followed up by going to Beaufort in the afternoon for the Australia Day celebrations there, where there were 3 citizens that became Australian citizens on the day. And we had a speaker, Susan Fahad, who is from Avoca, and she did a great job of explaining a lot of the history of the goldfields, that we live in. It's a really broad area, and the bid for the World Heritage that she's been working on. So that was really, really inspiring. You could actually sit and listen to her for hours. She's just got a way of, drawing you into her stories. So that was lovely. And I also just want to mention the Avoca Cricket Club. They're going fantastic. They've got their under 13s who've been getting some wins. They're just great to see. They're little boys that are not very big, and they're out there having a crack, and that it's really sort of made my year watching them. Admittedly, 2 of them are my grandsons, but it is just such a pleasure to go. And the senior team, I believe, are on the top of the ladder, although I think Beaufort beat them this last week by 3 runs. So I was told, something along those lines. It might not be Beaufort, but someone beat them by 3 runs. So we're going to have to work a bit harder on that one. And I just wanted to bring up, for anyone interested, on the 28th of February at Amphitheatre, to try and get along to the Tom Curtin show that they're running out there. It'll be a wonderful, wonderful evening. He does a great job. All Australian with his dogs and his horses, and he's a remarkable singer as well. So for those who can, I think it's from about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So it'll be a beautiful evening. Please try and get along to that and support the community where you can.
Thank you, Councillor Wardlaw. It has been a little while since we've had to report on our activities, but I won't go through all the activities I have there, but some I'll highlight. Earlier in the year, had a couple of meetings with some ministers, and it's really good to meet with them because you get the opportunity to say what needs to be said and do that advocacy work. It's a pretty consistent message, really. And I met with Minister D'Ambrosio, and it was really good. She was very empathetic to our situation, and she seemed to listen. And she said, the things that I'm highlighting, and myself and the CEO are highlighting, are consistent across many rural councils. But then what I highlighted to the minister was that yes, but we've got something unique because we've had about 5 disasters pretty much continuously in a row, from floods to fires, back to fires, and then we've also got that consistent drought on top of it. So Pyrenees has had its more than fair share of disasters, and I mean, that coupled with the dry, I think we're a little bit unique in that way. So I hope that message got through. And, you know, we did certainly push that topic, but so I just hope it got through. Been to a few meetings, GBAC meeting, quite a few meetings with the Stratham Fire Community Recovery Network meeting, which I'll continue to attend, which we're doing once a week at this stage, usually on a Thursday. You get a lot out of them, and you just get a chance to network and particularly speak to the people in that community that's affected, and you hear the real stories and really what's going on. So that's vitally important. And I think the important thing about that is when we did go for a drive, I did take Councillor Phelan and Councillor Wardlaw for a drive down through the affected areas, certainly not to browse over people's misfortune, but certainly just to get an actual picture of the devastation, and that's all you can call it. It's just complete devastation. In a very short time, that fire did a hell of a lot of damage, and you know, our thoughts are continuing with those people that were affected in a small or a big way, or in any way at all. And I think what the important thing about that, and it's come out through these network meetings, is people get affected as families or businesses or individuals, but then that flows onto the communities, and certainly the Skipton community, who's a fantastic little community down there. They're very, very caring. They've bonded together really well, but it certainly affected the residents in Skipton, with knowing that their friends and colleagues and loved ones have been directly affected by the fire. So we're very conscious of that. And to that point, I urge any community members to reach out if they require assistance or advice, or if they feel something isn't going as it should. You are entitled for assistance, you are entitled to advice, and if you think it's not right or you're not happy, please reach out to us. And if we can't help you, or we're not the agency, we'll find someone who will. So you are entitled to that. Please don't be afraid to reach out if necessary. Again, attended the Pyrenees Shire Australia Day event, which was fantastic and was hosted on behalf up at Beaufort, the Oval there, on behalf of the Waterloo community. And I know John Caution and some community members there, they put in a lot of work to make that happen. So thank you, John, and that community. And hopefully we recognise Waterloo enough through the day, and it was just fantastic to host that up there on behalf of Waterloo, and was really well attended. The day went really, really well. So thank you to the staff at the council who did the organisation and coordination of that day. There's a lot goes into that. We just turn up and do what we have to do, but there's a lot of work goes into making those days happen. So thanks to Chantel's one of them over there sitting there. Thank you very much, Chantel, and anyone else that was involved in that. I think that's about it. A lot of things that could go on there, but that really covers it. I think we really were just very conscious about the fires and the ongoing recovery work there, and we'll be there as long as we need to be. So.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to mention one more thing.
Yes.
That we had a meeting with Langi Calco, the Department of Corrections, last week about the terrible incident that occurred with the escapees, and looks like we're getting the community engagement team back together, and a bit more transparency and a bit more notification as to how the situation's handled in the future, because it's been quite upsetting for a lot of that community around there. So,
yes, thank you, Councillor Toll. I thought it was a really productive meeting, and I think a lot of good will come out of that, particularly for the community. So that's fantastic. Okay, that brings us to item 13, confidential items. So we've got two things. So could I have someone move? Thank you. Could I have someone second it? All those in favour, move into confidential things. So can we please stop the recording?
That's been stopped, Mr Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, because speaking.
Yes, of course.